Just needed a friend. That's
it's
right.
Like a national shirt you're wearing.
There you go.
So,
It just needed a friend.
here you go. Now you got that.
You're not in control.
What?
They both have heads.
It's true. Sorry, Sevi. No matter how
How
hard you want to start on time. Just, you're not in control.
That's our goal. One day we will start on time.
One day. You're on time.
Why, did anyone give you opening prayers?
Yeah.
Okay. In English. Here is the great earth, filled with the smell of incense, covered with a blanket of flowers. The great mountain, the 4 continents, wearing a jewel of the sun and the moon. In my mind, I make this a paradise of a Buddha, and I offer it all to you. By this deed, may every living being experience the pure world. Idam Guru Ratna Mandalakam Niriyatayami. Huge to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha, until we achieve enlightenment. By the power of the goodness that I do, in giving the rest, may I reach Buddhahood for the sake of every living being. We go for refuge to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha, until we achieve enlightenment. By the power of the goodness that I do, in giving the rest, may we reach Buddhahood for the sake of every living being. For refuge, the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha, until we achieve enlightenment. By the goodness that I do, in giving and the rest, may I reach Buddhahood for the sake of every living being.
Let me turn the fan off.
Or do you want me to move this one closer?
It's okay. I think we're okay.
Let's just try that. It's blowing our pages a little bit.
It's chaos.
Yeah, it's chaos.
Are you okay?
Yeah.
It'll be a good class.
Yes, it's chaos in the beginning. It's going to be good.
I'm freezing.
You know.
Yeah, I am.
Oh.
Okay. So, we're kind of jumping right into the middle, okay? This is class 5 of 10. In fact, you're jumping right in the middle. So, you'll just have to get Farah to catch you up, okay? If there's any questions after this, you're also welcome to come to talk to us. Last time, do you guys remember what we were talking about?
The 4 powers.
That's right. And why were we talking about the 4 powers? What was it for? Purification. So, the Geshe-la wanted us to go a little bit deeper into the last 2 of the 4 forces to begin the class today. And Master Shantideva gives us this really cool concept. Say Nyembo?
Nyembo.
Nyembo is a very short word that can be translated as a thought that cannot coexist with another thought. Do you remember the analogy that Lama John gave last week about a bar? Three dakinis going into a bar. Okay, well, you can imagine that bar is in a saloon, and it's in a western town. Okay, basically what Nyembo means is this town ain't big enough for the 2 of you and your mental afflictions. Okay, your pure highest thoughts and your mental afflictions cannot coexist. And actually, there's something else that cannot coexist that we'll get into later in this class, which is really what Nyembo is all about. But this whole concept of Nyembo is taught in the Abhisalamkara, the Perfection of Wisdom scriptures, and it's in the very first chapter, and the translation is that the translation literally says thoughts cannot coexist with other thoughts. So what they mean is one kind of thought cannot coexist. Well, actually, they also say two thoughts can't happen at exactly the same time either.
They do say that.
Right? Like if you think you're multitasking and you think you're simultaneously thinking all these different things, you're actually not. You're toggling back and forth. You're actually going from one to the other just so seamlessly that it feels like it's all happening at the same time. Kind of the way reality happens too, right? 65 frames in a second. But the ultimate Nyambo, and this is really what cannot coexist with our mental afflictions, is the perception of emptiness. And actually, we're not even talking the ultimate perception of emptiness, which of course is the ultimate antidote. But even with an intellectual understanding, an intellectual comprehension that the world comes from you and not at you, which is basically what an understanding of emptiness means. If you can clearly remember that in any moment that a mental affliction is about to arise, you cannot. Your mind is not big enough for those two thoughts to happen concurrently or at the same time. Okay? So the ultimate Nyambo is the perfection. It is the perfection, right? Of perception of emptiness. Yeah. And it's really, really cool because once you really understand that, once you really can call it up, your whatever your capacity is in the moment for understanding the emptiness of whatever is going on in the moment, it's actually impossible to have a bad thought in that exact same moment. Doesn't mean you're not going to toggle. But the more and more you can recall your understanding of emptiness, the bigger that gap will be, until you will eventually have a cessation of that negative thought. Okay? So, I think you need to do this part, because you're way better at this than me.
Okay. If you insist.
Even though I didn't choreograph it that way.
Okay. So, so we're talking about an antidote, right? And Lama Sherri was just talking about the perception or even the intellectual understanding of emptiness being, well, we talked about it last time, right? Was as being an antidote, the greatest antidote. And then he's pointing out, you know, that perception can't exist at the same time as a mental affliction. So then we go to this debate that they have in a monastery.
The famous debate.
This famous debate. And actually this famous debate is often at the very end of any like huge Gelugpa debate where their geshes are getting monks are getting their geshe stuff, and they do their like our Marok. And so let's do a little debate. No, it's okay. It's okay. So let's consider samsara. Let's consider samsara. Well, first of all, you can't tell me what samsara is because there is no definition for samsara. There is a definition for samsara. There's no way you can tell me what it is.
I'll try.
You can tell me. You can tell me? Because if you don't think you can, I'm going to get somebody else to tell me. You can tell me what samsara is. Show!
Samsara is the constant, being constantly born over and over.
So just being born is samsara.
No.
So there's something else. There's something else besides just being born.
It's the suffering. It's the constant suffering. And it's this.
It's the pain of birth, being squeezed out of that hole. It hurts.
Birth and death, I said.
Oh, okay. Oh, it's a cycle.
Yeah.
Oh, samsara. Are you trying to tell me that samsara is like the cycle, the endless cycle of rebirth into the suffering? Is that what you're saying?
The cycle of being born and dying.
Yes.
I'll take that as a yes.
Okay, I'll take that as okay. Sure. Okay,
Because
you know what
of-
samsara is.
Because that's
Yes.
not the point.
But you can't tell me what samsara
You can't do that. You can't do that. That's breaking all the rules. Okan, when she gets home. Okay. you have full permission to. Okay, she's turning the tables. It's not allowed. Okay.
Do you two debate, by the way?
Argument?
No.
Okay,
not
samsara.
argument, debate.
That's a quality of samsara is that you choose it. You choose samsara.
No,
Oh, you don't choose samsara.
no.
So then samsara is forced upon you.
Because of your karmic, because of
Ah.
your karma, because of your actions you
Oh.
keep doing.
So an element.
In
So
your
are you?
lifetimes you're born.
Okay, so you tell me this weird, crazy thing that part of samsara is that you're forced by your karma to keep
Reborn.
being reborn, and is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay, good. I believe you. So now, samsara. There is no end to samsara because you can't prove to me that there's an end to samsara.
Is the end of samsara meant to be when you reach enlightenment, when you don't have any sankharas anymore to push you into being born, and then there's no more samsara? Right?
Okay. No one here can say what the definition of not samsara is. The absence of samsara is.
Enlightenment.
Okay, sure. Some enlightenment. There's also another. There's.
Nirvana.
You could say, in a lower school, yeah, enlightenment is which is nirvana. So it's good enough
Yeah.
in the school we studied to say that nirvana is simply enough, but which in other areas is also called enlightenment. But total enlightenment is further. But yes, so enlightenment, yeah, you're out of samsara. Enlightenment. Okay, so samsara. You cannot point to a time. Let's consider samsara. You can't point to a time when samsara began, because there was no first moment to samsara. You can't point to the first thing that made samsara happen. There was no beginning to samsara. There's no beginning. It's not going to end. There's no beginning, so it can't end.
It can.
Oh, it can end.
There's these levels.
So you're telling me that samsara can end.
Yes.
You can't tell me how it could end. You can't tell me why it could end. You can't tell me the reason why it's possible that it could end.
Because he's,
Okay, you
Okay,
can't.
no,
But
you
you're
can
saying,
go.
okay, you're going to say that you can say?
well, how it can end. I can
Okay,
say
you
how
can
it
say that?
end.
Okay.
Oh.
Then, okay, sure.
Okay.
Give it to me.
That you stop struggling with aversion and craving, and you exist purely without craving and aversion, and so you release all your sankharas
Ah.
without resisting anything and remain equanimous. As all you release all your karma until you have none left to release anymore by remaining equanimous.
Oh, that's nice. And how are you going to do that? You can't tell me how you can do that.
You can do it by accepting whatever situation, whatever feelings, whatever arises, being in complete acceptance of it.
So being in complete acceptance of reality will bring nirvana.
Yes.
Just being complacent and thinking that this is
No,
all
not
good.
complacent.
You're not complacent. You're something else.
Not complacent because actually it's very dynamic. When you're releasing sankharas, a lot is happening when you're releasing your karma.
Okay, so in order to achieve that beautiful state you're talking about,
Yeah.
there's nothing needed for that. There's no special thing that's needed for that. And Farah can't tell us, even though she's nodding her head, she can't tell us.
Andrew,
You can.
Dirk,
Show.
the perception of emptiness
Woo.
is the end of it causes the end of samsara because it produces a permanent cessation of the seed that the world exists independently of the perception of it.
Oh, nice. So what you're saying is that it is possible for samsara to end because there is an antidote to it. There is a powerful antidote to it, which is emptiness, which is wisdom.
Yes. Very
Nice.
Well done.
Yeah.
Well done.
I'm just like a trained dog. I'm just going to debate one.
Lama John is our giku, our debate master. So it's watch and learn. But actually, getting back to what you were saying, Mai, is that there is, because of the understanding of emptiness, it is possible to eventually reach that state of equanimity. It actually isn't possible to reach that just by wanting to reach it, or by struggling to reach it, or by thinking you have reached it. You know, it's just, it's not that simple. And actually, we're going to get to our Geshe Michael, who translated all of these courses, in this exact class, deals with what could be a misunderstanding of what you just said. I don't take that you misunderstand it at all, but that very same phrase you said, just get rid of all your sanskaras and reach this point of equanimity, is actually the root of a lot of Dharma rumors that are quite popular, and there's a subtle thing that Geshe wants us to really understand so that we don't fall to the misunderstanding side of that, and that is to understand the emptiness component. So it's a really important, crucial point in that definition. So he says, if you're going, Master Shantideva says that if you're going to understand the antidote, which we've already defined, right, as even an understanding, if not the direct perception of emptiness, you have to understand what it is that you're, like, why do we need an antidote? And we said we need it to purify, but why do we need to purify? So we have to understand that, I mean, why would you take an antidote in the nominal sense? Like, why would you drink an antidote?
So you won't die. Get rid of the poison.
To get rid of the poison. And why would you be dying? To get rid of the poison, right? Or you could even say, like, that was the bar example. They so liked your bar example. But you could also say you take an antidote, could you not, to get rid of an illness, to get rid of a disease. Is that not also why you would take an antidote? Like if you have, what do they call it in those horror movies? These viruses that, right? And then you've got the people show up in their hazmat suits and they, like, I don't know, saran wrap you off from the world, and then they have to quarantine. And then they have to find the antidote, right? So in order to understand the antidote, which we've defined as emptiness, you need to understand what sickness specifically is being cured by that antidote, right? Because you're not going to take an antidote for snake venom if you've been bit by a rabid rat, right? I mean, you're not going to. And actually, even as a more real life example, my mother, who has high blood pressure and a pacemaker, so she's on blood thinners, mistakenly took my father's medication, which was for diabetes. And it was only in the emergency ward that we discovered that her blood sugar had plummeted. So obviously diabetes medication, not good for pacemaker and blood thinners, right? And high blood pressure. Like, you do not mix your medications in that way. So we need to understand what sickness is being cured. So we're going to get a little bit of an explanation of the illnesses that we're specifically dealing with.
Spiritual illness.
And there's another really great word here.
Yeah, say duksum.
Duksum.
Duksum. So duk means poison. And sum means, do you know what sum means, Sevi? Not yet? 3.
Oh.
Well, I don't know, Sevi's our Tibetan or Tibetan connoisseur. You're becoming our Tibetan connoisseur. Well, somebody's got to do it. We failed.
Yeah, we failed miserably. We pick you.
And Mariska, probably.
Mm-hmm.
So the main disease is the 3 poisons. And no one here can tell me what the 3 poisons are because no one's ever been to any ACI class before. Oh, someone has been to an ACI class. Farah has, in fact.
Sure.
Oh, you can't tell me what the 3 poisons are.
Sure.
You can't.
No, Kathmandu.
Oh, you can.
Sure.
Sure.
The 3 poisons are desire, aversion, and wrong worldview.
Nice.
What was the last one?
Wrong worldview.
Ignorance, wasn't it the ignorance?
Wrong worldview.
Same thing.
Same thing. So it's desire. So it's a poison to like something. You're telling me it's a poison to like something.
Kathmandu.
Oh, it's not specific. It's not automatically a poison to like something. Oh.
Kathmandu.
There's a certain way of liking something that's a poison.
Sure.
You can't tell me what that is.
Kathmandu.
You can.
Sure.
Sure.
To ignorantly like something is the wrong way to desire something.
Yeah. So, Farah nicely brought in the ignorant word. And this is another beautiful thing that Geshe Michael Roach does, is he brings in those words into the translation, because you can be reading Dharma books and hearing Dharma teachings, and you'll simply hear desire and aversion and get that mistaken idea that it's that, and which is what Lama Sherri was saying about your response, which you all say we don't think that it's imperfect, but that people think that to be the goal to be a Buddhist is to, like, be sitting on some hilltop and just like being impervious to everything and being okay with the whether they have the food they want or not, and they're just kind of this neutral thing. So as if to have any kind of feeling or any kind of emotion towards anything is wrong, right? Which is a mistake. But so why are they called poisons? They're called poisons. Why do you think they're called poisons?
Because it's causing you to be born, and then causes that will end up with your death.
Sevi's always answers the same way. Everybody has their
Yeah, everybody has their thing.
everyone has their thing, right? My sister was always emptiness.
No matter what
Or-
the question was. And you know what? 99.9% of the time she was right.
Sevi's like, because it makes you die and be born again. You're going to be famous for that now. So a shorter way of saying that would be because they hurt you, right? They're poisonous because they hurt you.
Yes.
Right.
That's
Right.
what you meant.
Right. Yeah.
We know.
Right. Very
We know.
specifically because they hurt you so much that you die.
And then you have to be reborn again.
Right. Okay, but that's true. One reason is that they hurt you, and two is because they call them poisons in the way that they behave like poison in that they're insidious. It's like they're in your blood, or they
They say it's like leukemia. Like you don't even know it's there, but it's
But
just
your
like
blood is full of it.
coursing through your blood, right?
Yeah, so your mind is full of these 3 poisons, as in, so it's even, we're not aware of it. And that's the whole point of what Farah was saying, right? That it's that understanding of where things are coming from that eventually shows you with a glaring light the actual poisons that are in your mind, and you actually finally get to see them, and then you get to live by this new understanding. So the third implication of poison is, well, what happens if you take the antidote? Then you should probably, if you take the antidote for the poison,
And you're healed.
you're healed, you feel good. So that's the 3 reasons why they call it poison. And we don't think we need to say too much about this because I think we're all pretty up on that. But as far as I was saying, Geshe Michael Roach, he feels it's really important to add ignorant liking and ignorant disliking and ignorance to the liking and disliking, because of the simple fact that if you don't add that element to it, then you could take that to a logical extreme, like on the debate ground, and you could come to this point where then that would mean that to be free of those poisons would simply mean that you're sitting at home on the couch and you have total equanimity about everything. You have no desire, you have no aversion, and you're like just, I don't know,
Numb.
Roboton or something, right? Which is not the goal. And I think it's good to get clear on that, because otherwise, especially in this world, especially in the Western world, where we're fraught with guilt, right? We're so looking for reasons. Most of the Western world, looking for reasons to feel guilty, right? And it's like a sickness, really. And which is interesting that there is no word for guilt in the Tibetan language. They don't even have a word for it. And really, it's just some kind of egotistical self-cherishing thing when you get into really wanting to go into the guilt thing. Because if you go down that road and think about it enough, you can plainly see that really it's not helpful. It's not helpful. Especially, I think it's very easy to understand how guilt is not helpful if you get a really good teaching on intelligent regret, right? Because then someone might say to me like, well, what do you mean guilt is not good? Well, do you mean I can just do anything then? And then and not feel guilty? Where it's the word guilt, but if you take guilt away and put intelligent regret there, that's a whole different story. Yeah, I shouldn't have done that because it will bring me harm. Is much different than I shouldn't have done that, so I'm a crappy person and I suck, and now I'm going to tell everybody and just feel sorry for myself and not really be of any use in the world, right? Stay in bed all day. It just leads to this thing. Because what is depression, right? What is depression? Depression is like the Tibetan Buddhist definition of depression is when you actually lose the ability to think of anyone else but yourself. And then guilt is just you're heading in that direction, right? So we're going to talk about a little bit about emptiness in regards to seeing people. Like, for instance, some of you here are familiar with Jason Kappa's sadhana, right? Mikme Tsewe Terchen Tunrizik, right? That mantra that's in the first mantra, right? And Mikme Tsewe, no one can tell me what Mikme Tsewe means. Oh! Someone can tell me what Mikme Tsewe means.
Sure. Maybe not word for word.
Shock!
I bow to
Just the Mikme Tsewe.
Just the Mikme Tsewe. Just the Mikme Tsewe part. Okay, well then how about, since you're on such a roll, Mikme Tsewe Terchen Tenrezik, which means?
I bow to loving the eyes, treasure of love, no one that loves.
With no one it loves? I guess that's the same thing, is it with no one it sees,
No one that sees.
right? So Mikme Tsewe is the part that says love that doesn't see anything, right? Love that doesn't see anything. So Mikme Tsewe Terchen Tenrezik means you have a love, and like Avalokiteshvara, right? Loving eyes. You have a love like that, which doesn't see anything. So what do you suppose that this holy being that he's speaking of doesn't see? When he looks upon a being with its great compassion and love, what does it not see?
separate.
Something separate. So they see this being as them, not separate from them, but they see them as them. There's no being to love because there's no other being there. It's them.
Yes?
So there's no point in doing anything for anybody else because everybody's just you. So there is a being to see. There is a being to love.
Yes.
Okay. So then this holy being of great compassion, who has reached total enlightenment, understands emptiness very, very well, they look at a being and love them, and they don't see something. No one can tell me what they don't see when they see a being. Takmadrup. Someone can tell me. Shock.
They're seeing the being that doesn't have a self-existence from its own side.
Right. So what they're seeing, they're not seeing. Tibetan Buddhism is crazy because they're always talking in double negatives, right? They're always talking in negatives. So they look at this being and they have great love for this being, but they do not see this being as being self-existent. They totally understand the emptiness of this being to the point where they just don't see it, which is a different kind of a love and a different kind of a wisdom and a different state of being than someone who sees someone that they love and prescribes all these things to them as coming from their own side. And because of that, it's, they would say, a lesser love.
Can you say that again? They don't see the person as existing as, say it again.
So they look at this being,
Yeah.
they love this being, and they don't see this being as a being who exists in a self-existent way or from their own, right?
Okay.
So the qualities that they see are not self-existent, right?
And they also know they don't
Yeah.
exist in a self-existent way.
Got it.
So their love, first of all, their love isn't conditional. Their love isn't to fix this being. Their love isn't something they can do for them. There's you can take it on many parameters, but
The love
because
doesn't exist. Say that one more time.
I don't remember what I said. I'm just channeling here, but their love doesn't exist as something they can do. It's not conditional. It's not something that they're going to do self-existently from their side to fix this other being that exists self-existent from this, right?
Okay.
None of
Nothing
it
does.
does. Remember the three spheres: subject-object interaction.
Yes.
All. Another way of saying emptiness is pure potential. So it's all this, but you actually don't get to pure potential if one of those three things is still appearing self-existent to you.
Unbelievable.
It's crazy, isn't it?
Unbelievable.
But isn't that beautiful how you can see with just that, you just peeled away another layer of, I love that.
Unbelievable.
So that's
it's a real
where
game
we're-
changer.
Yeah, it's a real game changer. But that's what Lama John is saying. This love that doesn't see doesn't mean the love doesn't mean they don't see anything. Although literally it says doesn't see anything, but they don't see anything the way you think they see things.
And so, and why he's using that example is that this type of being seeing in this type of way, there is no room in their mind for the other thought. The three poisons cannot exist in the same room, right?
Impossible.
So, and an idea that may be a mistaken idea is that once you reach this place of great understanding of where things are coming from, and that whatever you're seeing, these beings that you're loving, you understand that they don't appear self-existently in any way, nor do you, or this love, or this experience. It does not mean that the love is less or the compassion is less because somehow it's lacking some element of substance. It's in fact, it's the opposite.
Infinite.
It's the opposite. Because you're with the lack of self-nature of everything, it's a fullness, not an emptiness. Although you have to go to the fact that what emptiness is, which is simply a lack of something. But the lack of something then allows you to experience the totality of the fullness. And it's only by experiencing the lack of it, then can you experience fully the fullness. So mental afflictions cannot coexist in that place. So here's a question for you, and this should make you think. If in the times, even before you reach this state, where you're like have reached this holy state, along the way, if your mind is running with these kinds of thoughts about the nature, but where the perception is coming from, that you actually see, so then you can't have a mental affliction about the object, right? So if that's true, and your mind is always moving, there's always activity, whether it's neutral, or negative or positive, whatever you want to say. So in the absence of mental affliction, something's still there. What's left? It's your love, it's your compassion, right? So, and that's a nice way to understand how it is that reaching these great states is always born of something going away. It's born of a cessation, because it's not like you're ever going to stop, right? So that's why he's given a really nice demonstration of how it is that they can't coexist.
And it didn't come up in this dissertation, but those of you who have taken other ACI courses will know that by definition, if you're having a mental affliction, if you're having a klesha, if you're having, it's in Tibetan, it's nyomo, that by definition you are not in that moment seeing the emptiness of that situation or that person or that experience. By definition, a mental affliction means that you are feeling, thinking, looking at something in a self-existent way. Because if you weren't, it would be impossible to have that klesha even arise.
Which is what we're going to get into very soon, right?
Yeah. So we're just going to go a little bit to a scriptural reference, which we've kind of already touched upon, where if you want to have a nice picture of the duksum, then the reference is the Wheel of Life, which is on the back of that book there. The Wheel of Life Tanka, which also we've commissioned Sarah to paint for us, and they have started. I think they started on Sunday.
Nice.
So cool. But the Wheel of Life, and there's actually two versions, and some of you may remember these stories from previous ACI too. And again, Geshe doesn't get into it, but just briefly, one story was where Lord Buddha took a disciple on a personal, up close and personal tour of hell and brought him back and then said, okay, paint what you just saw. And the other one is the gift giving between the two kings in ancient India. Do you guys remember that? Mm-hmm. Where they were trying to out-gift the other. And the ultimate gift resulted in the painting of, ostensibly it was the painting of the Buddha, but then they couldn't paint the Buddha in all of its magnificence. So, but basically the Lord Buddha was, kind of art directing this painting, which ultimately became the Wheel of Life and helped the recipient king have a direct perception of emptiness upon receiving it, right? Anyway, so those are two little value-added stories for you that aren't in the audio for this class. But the Wheel of Life, the two versions we're talking about in this class aren't those two stories. That was just extra Buddha Dharma tidbits for you. The two versions that Geshe wants us to really know about is basically the original version, the older version, and the more contemporary version of that very painting. In the contemporary version, you will see the three presentations. Does anyone remember what the actual symbol is for ignorant disliking, ignorant liking, and ignorance itself?
Pig, rooster, and snake?
Yeah. Do you remember which was which?
No.
If I was a pigeon.
You're getting ahead of yourself. You're talking about the old one, but yes. So this is the old and the new. The contemporary is the pig, rooster, and pig, snake, and rooster. And the old one, Sevi's already jumped to the punchline. Nope, is the pig, snake, and pigeon. Pigeon was the original fowl, and apparently they're very, very desirous. The other difference is that in the newer version, the three animals they look like they're chasing each other, or the tail of the one is in the mouth of the other, and they're kind of going in a circle. Whereas in the original one, it all comes out of the pig. And if you ever see this beautiful film called Words of My Perfect Teacher, there is a beautiful teaching where Donsei Khyentse Rinpoche is teaching children about the wheel of life. And he says, you have to kill the pig. And that's basically how I remember what ignorance is. I always remember him saying that. Kill the pig. Lord of the Flies, exactly. Piggy, yeah. It's exactly what I think of too when I hear that. But you got to kill the pig. And I wonder where Lord of the Flies got it from. Anyways, that's the, in the original, in the Vinaya, the Buddha taught that out of the mouth of the pig, out of the mouth of ignorance, comes this ignorant desire, this ignorant liking, and this ignorant aversion or this ignorant disliking. Okay? And it's because ignorance is at the root of all of that. So we digressed. We were talking about spiritual illness, and we were discussing the third antidote, the third power. Geshe-la says there's 6 antidotes, but to fix specifically spiritual illness, we are needing to zero in on this, the duksum, on the 3. Yeah. Okay, so Lama John's going to get into this a little bit more, but those 3, what do you call them? Metaphors? Is that what you would call them? Symbols?
Symbols, yeah.
Are the technical definition from the monastic textbooks for liking things ignorantly, disliking things ignorantly, and ignorance itself. The 3 poisons.
Yes. So now we're going to talk about, this is like the technical definition from a monastic textbook for liking things ignorantly. And then you can extrapolate from that definition about, the other 2. And first of all, something which appears to you that is actually impure is appearing to you as attractive. So what does impure mean, I wonder? What does impure mean? Anyone want to take a crack at that?
Non-virtuous?
You could say, okay, it's made of non-virtue, you could say. You could say if it's impure, then it has been brought about by non-virtue. So let's just say I wanted to get a big plate of spaghetti, and it's appearing to me as very attractive. I'm attracted to this plate of spaghetti, and I'm walking towards it because I'm attracted to it. And I have this idea, as I looked at this plate of spaghetti, what would make that spaghetti pure or impure?
You're thinking that it's coming from the spaghetti.
Yeah?
That spaghetti is delicious because of its own side.
Yeah.
Instead thinking that the reason you see it is
Yeah.
because you have given perhaps in the past someone the same experience of enjoying seeing something that they like. So
Right.
they like the spaghetti based on past karmas.
That's nice. Okay. So I go towards this spaghetti and I understand that it's coming from my karma. And then I go and I understand that. And yet for it to be impure in a way that could cause me suffering. So you said it. That was really great what you said. What would I have to think? What's not going to happen?
That's going to make me feel good.
For ever.
Yeah.
Right?
That is going to be permanent. Like,
Yeah.
It's going to fix me.
Yeah, like it's so something which is actually impure to me seems like it's attractive, like it's going to really help me. So, and they say that a plate of spaghetti, if it is indeed an impure plate of spaghetti, would be something that after I finished eating it would lead to hunger, in a sense where I would eventually be hungry when it ran out, and that it couldn't like sustain me forever or make me happy forever, because the karma of it runs out, because it's impure, because it was because I brought it about in my world in an impure way. So there's a lot that's going on with this word impure, right? So we have to figure out what this is going to mean for us in our lives, as far as what is like being attracted to an impure object or not really means. So the technical definition is it's a mental function, it's a mental thought that acts of its own accord. Remember the insidious poison, right? It acts of its own accord. It's in your mind. That doesn't want to lose something that's actually impure, but which appears as attractive, right? It doesn't want to lose it, even though it's impure, but it appears attractive. But the main point is it's a thought. The main point is you don't want to lose something. And that something is actually like a dirty thing, like an impure thing, but seems to be nice. So those are the basic three elements of that. So if the pleasant taste of that spaghetti could turn into hunger, then they say that's an impure object. And what they say, by virtue of that, you could logically then understand if anyone is who they appear to be, like say, we don't know who's in this room, how many enlightened beings are in this room. There could easily be a lot of them in this room. If people are appearing to be normal, then everything that is changing in their world is impure, because everything's always running out. Everything's always changing in that way. So unless you're pure of mind, and you have developed a mind that can no longer, it's like you were saying, right? The sanskars run out, and then they run out, and there's no more causes for this kind of impure reality. If you're not there yet, then everything you're experiencing in your life is constantly changing and leading to your experience of a lack of it. And that causes some kind of suffering, so the object is impure. So they're saying that by the virtue of that, by the logic of that, then every single thing in your world is actually impure and born of some kind of impure cause, and so must run out. Because the karma for it must run out. Just like our bodies, for instance, like these kinds of bodies, if you have one of these physical bodies, it's born of impure karma, because it's going to run out. one day you'll have a kind of body that doesn't run out, and your experience will be a different experience as you how do you say that? Constantly perpetuate the virtue to be constantly having this body, this kind of tantric deity type of body that is outside of the flesh, that must go because it started. So that's how that kind of desire has to work. You have to see this thing as being attractive. It's going to give me happiness, and you go for it, and you misunderstand the object itself. So what do you suppose the difference is? The difference between liking something ignorantly and liking it intelligently.
Say that again.
What is the difference between liking a plate of spaghetti ignorantly or liking a plate of spaghetti intelligently?
You don't get attached to one. When you like it intelligently, there is no this fear of going hungry or attaching yourself to that.
Okay, but specifically, how does the object appear to you? What do you know about the object? You already said it. What do you know about the object?
That it's not coming from its own side.
Right.
And
So
And that it's impermanent and it's
yeah, it's been forced upon you by your karma.
yeah.
Just to say, knowing that it changes isn't enough. That's actually a that would imply that the ultimate perception of the food is to think that it was, impermanent, which is actually, they say, a lower. It's actually a spiritual obstacle. They say if we think that it's impermanent, that's why it's impure. It's just impermanent. It's just going to end. If it's just that, then that is actually a lower understanding than the full understanding, which is, well, it's been brought here by the being forced upon me by the virtue of my good deeds, depending on whether you choke on it or not.
Yeah, I was just going to say that. Yeah.
Right? Because you could easily put that in your mouth and people just die.
Yeah, you don't know what it's going to taste like.
You don't know.
You can be craving
Yeah.
it and see it.
So that's the ultimate misperception of the food, is thinking that from its own side it has any kind of quality that could, give you anything.
Sorry, can I just
Yeah.
add one thing?
Yeah.
Because it's just recently, Lama John and I were taking some classes from our Lamas, and I have to say, Lama Yvonne started saying something that I hadn't heard her say before. And when she's teaching misperception, because that's what we're talking about, right? A misperception. We're misperceiving the object. We're misunderstanding. But instead of misperception, she's starting to call it missed perception, which is actually a really interesting fine-tuning, because we miss the fact that it's empty. We miss the fact that it doesn't come from it, we think that it comes from its own side. We miss the fact that it doesn't, right? So it's just I just throw that out for you. It's not part of this course, but I just love the fact that she's now calling it missed perception for misperception.
You've missed the perception.
Yeah, it's interesting. Anyway, sorry.
That's
Just wanted to throw that out at them.
That's good. It's nice. So the highest school of Buddhism says that when you perceive the plate of spaghetti as anything other than your own projection forced upon you by your past karma, then you are misperceiving the pizza. I mean the spaghetti. You're really misperceiving it.
The whole audio, if you go back and listen to it, is about pizza. Geshe-la really loves pizza.
So if you do indeed have a misperception about the spaghetti, then you are in the running to have a mental affliction about it. That puts you in good standing. You now qualify to have a mental affliction about it. So you could say, you could put it another way, which is like you don't understand the emptiness of the spaghetti. You don't understand the emptiness of the spaghetti. So then you can have a mental affliction about it.
And then maybe afterwards you had the mental affliction, you realize that you had the mental affliction.
Well,
Spaghetti.
well, yeah. It's a constant stream, right? You could, yeah. So you've heard the expression dependent origination, right? So if you understand its emptiness, then you understand its dependent in origination. And just emptiness is like the negative way of saying dependent origination. Dependent origination is a positive way of saying emptiness. And so it's like that. Like, that's why emptiness is always expressed in that double negative way, right? If you see it as anything other than anything that is, not brought to if you see the spaghetti as anything other than something that is not brought to you by the force of your own karma, then you don't understand the emptiness. Oh, then no, then you, right, of the.
I know, it's so confusing. Does everybody understand?
right?
Okay, everybody's got the definition of emptiness, right?
Yeah.
The not, right? Does everybody get the definition of dependent origination,
Yes.
which is?
If you think that it's coming from its own side, and
Don't even go there.
No.
What is it that you're seeing when you're seeing dependent origination? You are seeing something that is.
arising. You started well. I understand that he says it. It's saying
It's
Okay,
a
here
projection,
I'm gonna give it
right?
to you. Dependent origination is something that you see that is forced upon you by your projection. Something that you see. I know, I get it mixed up too. That is a projection forced upon you by your karma. So what it is that you're projecting, what it is that you're seeing forced upon you by your karma is dependent origination. What it is absent of, the thing that you are projecting forced upon you by your karma is absent of any self-existent nature. That's the emptiness of it. Okay? So the absence is the negative, like the minus on a battery, and the positive, being what is there, what you're seeing, is the projection forced upon you by your karma. That almost becomes like Dharma cocktail banter, like it comes off as one term almost, forced upon me by my karma.
So
we actually have to not let it be that.
Yeah, so that's why they say, just before you see emptiness directly, you see dependent origination
you understand
directly.
dependent
Right?
origination.
Just before you see it.
Yeah, you see how your mind
Right?
does that.
Before your mind goes into the actual sheer absence of, right? Once you joins with what isn't there, first you have to fully see what is there.
And that flops you
And
over.
that's,
everything you see, feel, experience, hear, taste, and the rest, it's forced upon you by your karma.
yeah.
And the absence of that,
It's not the absence
no,
of
no.
dependent
Yeah.
origination.
Okay.
It's the absence of any self-existence to that. The absence
Yes.
of that being anything but being
Yes.
forced upon you by your karma
yes.
is, yeah. So you got to think of it as two sides of the same coin, okay? So on the one end, the absence of anything, not of anything, but the absence of any self-existence is the emptiness side. The projection existing forced upon you by your karma is the positive. It's what is there. Okay, so both are describing emptiness actually, but it's going at it in different ways.
Yeah.
It's what you're not seeing and what you are seeing.
It's like this cup, right? I mean, the emptiness of the cup. Oops,
Not so
it's
empty.
not quite empty. The emptiness of the cup is what isn't here, right? The emptiness is there's no cup in this cup, right? Cup is not coming out of this cup, making you see cup. So that is the emptiness of the cup. There's no cupness in the cup. The dependent origination of the cup is the cup that you see being forced upon you by your karma,
That you could see in no other way.
right? There
Right
is
now.
a cup here for anyone that sees a cup. but it's not a cup from its own side.
Got it?
Yeah?
Good.
Yeah? Farah looks happy. Okay.
Geshe likes to call it A cup and B cup. Take that to the debate ground, okay?
So the whole idea is, yeah, right.
What's the difference?
The whole idea is, if you understood where the food is coming from and how the food has appeared to you, would you do a bad deed to get it? No, you wouldn't. And that's the difference. And that's what stops the cycle. Because they say that one of the qualities of ignorant desire, because it's based in ignorance, then we're so confused about the object that we're actually willing to do harm to other beings to try and get it. I think sexual misconduct is one of the best examples of that, where we have this idea that we can be satisfied by this other person, and that is coming from them. And then so we're actually willing to do what we know is something wrong to get what we think is coming from that object. And it's entirely based on a misperception. And if you understood that, then you wouldn't do it. And that would just stop the wheel, which is why the contemplation of dependent origination and emptiness, same thing, different way of looking at it, which is why it's such a great antidote, because if you're not putting the karma into place, then it won't keep perpetuating itself. And then you do the four forces and get rid of your old bad stuff while you're applying this new awesomeness to your life.
That's a t-shirt.
Yeah.
Apply the new awesomeness.
Apply the new awesomeness. Yeah. And many of you already know here, but basically what we're talking about is the difference between doing something with perfection or not, really. Like the 6 perfections, right? If you give, right? If you give with no one it sees, right? If you give to no one it sees, then you're giving with perfection. Yeah. Right? And if you don't, then it's not quite perfect yet. But it will lead you to the perfection. Anyways. So here's another interesting thing that is quite interesting. So without basic ignorance, then the ignorant desire or ignorant aversion, they cannot happen. They're fueled by this basic ignorance, right? Now, they say there's this thing called background ignorance. Like background noise, background ignorance, right? And we've said before, right, if you have the 3 poisons, then they're in your mind. So if you're not specifically having ignorant desire or ignorant aversion, it's not running, if you're not having those raging in your mind, then what is there is just basic ignorance of just misunderstanding your world, right? So we've said before, like, okay, the screaming boss, anything negative in your life has been caused by bad deeds that you've done, right? Which causes you then to have ignorant aversion about where these things are coming from. And the good things in your life that you think are coming from its own side have been caused by good things that you've done, not purely, if they run out, right? That's the thing about, that's later in the class. But of those 2 things, but what about all the other stuff? What about all like Vancouver? What about all the stuff in your world that you go by every single day that you don't really have any kind of feeling about? You're totally neutral about. They say that is born of basic ignorance that's always running in your mind. As you go through your life, you're just simply misunderstanding your reality. You're walking through a room, you're driving through traffic, and maybe you're actually contemplating about, well, this person that cut me off was brought about by by my own past karma, but unless you're an Arya, you're pretty much not, most likely not constantly contemplating the fact that every single thing you're looking at is a projection. Everything. Every thought you're having, the color of your car, the color of your jeans, the name of the city, how you feel about the rain, like, or just the whole thing is born from your karma, and you're projecting the whole thing. And all that stuff is born of just basic ignorance that's there. And they call that background ignorance. The low-level misunderstanding of the whole world as you go through it creates all the things that you just feel neutral about and don't think too much about. So that's a pretty awesome thing to think about, because what would the opposite be? Right? They say, right? If you're an enlightened being, then you're just living in this realm of perpetual bliss. You don't have any neutral objects. There is no neutral object. You're just like, you're zinging with bliss all the time. So, if you're not quite there, then you've got a lot of neutral, born of basic ignorance. I'm still going.
Yeah,
Okay,
you're
so
still.
I think I've already said this, but is there such a thing as wise desire?
Yes.
Yes. What is wise desire?
Well, I would say that wise desire is when you understand the non-existent of the things that doesn't have self-existence. They don't. You understand the emptiness of it, and you can desire the enlightenment. You might want to desire to get enlightened for the sake of every living being, not for your own, because you think you're going to benefit something from it for yourself.
Yeah. So
That
you're
would
saying
be
you're
ignorant.
saying basically it's wise to want Buddhahood,
Yes.
right? Yeah, that's a wise desire. But there's also another, that's like healthy desire, right? That's a good thing to be desiring. What would be a good way to react to something that was offered to you that you like?
Understanding that you have given something in the past.
Yeah.
This is why you're receiving this at this moment.
It's always the same thing, right? Basically understanding where that thing came from. And then that, because if you do understand that, then you're not going to have a mental affliction about it. Then it's like, you get a new boyfriend and he brings you a rose every single day. Wow, he really loves me. And then one day he doesn't. If the whole time you know where it is how it is you could possibly even receive a rose that you like, then you're not going to put the onus on this person bringing you a rose or them not bringing you a rose, right? So if you thought, wow, great person brought a rose, great person bought a rose, good catch, bought a rose, good catch, bought a rose, I like him, good a rose, pleasing me, bought a rose, and then the day they don't, oh, what happened to this person, right? That's a different world than the world you want to be living in. And so, what's the worst thing to do in a situation if, say, someone comes up to you and starts yelling at you and calling you names? What's the worst thing that you could possibly do? If you're with wisdom, if you're having a wise moment, what's the worst thing you could do?
If you had a wise moment,
If you're having a wise moment, someone's yelling at you
and you're wise. moment.
in your wise moment. Oh, Okan
Yeah,
is
she's
mad at
Oh,
you because
thank
you won't
Holy
buy him
Being,
pizza.
for delivering my karma that I've done in the past to someone else. bound damage. I'm kidding.
Okay, well, sure, that's nice. But what's the worst thing that you could do?
Shout at them back.
Shout
Yeah,
back.
I know.
Because the only way that you can create someone doing that to you is by yelling at them. So stop. Right? That's how they come about.
Easy said than done.
Right?
It is easier said than done in the moment.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
That's what this is. This is training. Training to be like that. So generally speaking, eating something that you like should then be just a great moment where you revel in how good you've been. Like you revel in your virtue. Wow, I was really good. Right? And if you're really on your game, then you offer, and in your mind, you're like hoping other people also get happiness, right? Something like that. Or if you're a bodhisattva and you don't want to break your vows, then you must also be thinking, oh, I'm eating this so that I can be strong, so that I can serve somebody, or something like that, right? It's actually a bodhisattva vow. You break your
If you're not thinking that.
vow if you're not thinking, like, even if you have a shower, you're supposed to be thinking, I'm showering to, help other beings in some way, right? So,
Yeah.
so that's experiencing objects of desire intelligently. So it's not wrong to like nice things, right? That's good.
Yeah. So we've spent the greater part of this class talking really about this one way to purify ourselves, right? To really understand emptiness. Master Shantidevis gives us 3 more reasons why we should make good efforts in that. And the first one, these smell like homework questions. I think we only covered 1 homework question in everything we've told you so far. So those of you who are doing homework questions, I think this is a homework question. 3 reasons why we should make great efforts in the practice of purifying ourselves. So really, the reason we even have to purify ourselves, the reason we have to do the 4 forces, is really boils down to understanding the laws of karma. And do you guys remember from ACI 5 how difficult it is actually to understand the workings of karma? Do you remember that part? It's Shinto Kokyur, which is deeply, deeply hidden, even more hidden than emptiness, which is something that's not there. Like, it's deeply more hidden than that. So you have to really understand karma and its consequences, actions and its consequences, and we don't actually understand that very well. I mean, the really big things like don't kill, sure, we get that. But this, what did you just call it? Background. The background ignorance, we don't catch that it's ignorance, right? We don't catch that even that is putting into effect a cause that is going to bring us a result. So, but don't beat yourself up for that, because you pretty much have to be a fully enlightened being, or really, really close, to actually truly understand every single cause and its resultant effect. They say that, Lama John was giving you some bigger examples of the rain in Vancouver and the taste of the spaghetti and all of that, but even the 137th dot on that cork board floor, if you're seeing it at all, even if you didn't notice until I pointed it out, has a cause for you. Okay? So you have to be pretty much enlightened to know what that specific cause. There is a specific cause for that. But to know that, so understanding the laws of karma perfectly, we don't actually understand. That's why we need to do the 4 forces. That's why we need to purify, because we don't understand at this point. The second reason is that even if we do understand a little bit, and those of you in this room who have been to ACI for a while do understand a little bit of karma and its consequences, right? Even though we do, and Sevi, you just said it, easy to say, hard to do. Even though we know we shouldn't yell back in the moment, sometimes we just can't control ourselves, right? Or maybe we hold on to it, right, Okan? We hold on to it for like 30 seconds, maybe 19 seconds, and then out it comes. So, that's the second reason why we need to do the 4 forces. And then the third reason, and possibly the most important important. Geshe-la says this could be why it even came up in Master Shantideva's text, is that doing this practice of purification is supposed to clear away obstacles to reaching that incredible state of mind where you will have the state of mind where you can love every single being, all others, as much as you love yourself. Infinitely as much. You have to do these 4 forces to remove the obstacles to that. Because Lamajan mentioned that too, right? We have obstacles in our way. We know we want to have this great love, but we just can't help ourselves sometimes, right? We have obstacles that come up in our way. So in order to remove that, that's why we have to do the purification. And then we finally get to move on from purification because we've been doing that for a while.
Yeah, then we move on to actually collecting positive energy, right? We've been talking this whole time about getting rid of the negative stuff. Now we need to talk about nice grab. Ways to actually collect virtuous energy. They call them conducive conditions to make your bodhicitta grow. Do you know what bodhicitta is? Maya?
No.
Yeah, bodhicitta is, see you tomorrow, is the wish to become a fully enlightened being for the sake of every other living being. That's, so we're going to say that word and now you know what it means. Bodhicitta, yeah. So there are 5, should we take a break?
Let's just do this part first and then we'll take a break. Let's go to there.
Okay. So there are 5 things that we can do to help us collect good energy, okay? And the first one is something that I think that is so overlooked, I think, in our lives. And the Tibetan words are going to be the short forms of the words. So say yi rangwa.
Yi rangwa.
Yi rangwa.
Yi rangwa.
It means to be happy about the good things that you and other people are doing. Sound familiar?
Yes.
Right? Rejoicing. Rejoicing. Yeah. Rejoicing. Just to be happy about stuff that you and other people are doing brings virtue into your mind, brings positive energy into your mind. And of those, in that category, of course, we have a sub-list now. Okay, there are 3...
We're in the list lineage too, if you didn't know.
There are 3 levels to this rejoicing. Okay, the first level is anything good that you do or anyone else does that would get them to a higher realm. And so you should be happy about it. Anything that they're doing, really that's just anything they're doing that's good. That's avoiding the 10 non-virtues, really, is keeping people away from lower realms, which really then keeps them in higher realms, right? Just to stay human, just to actually plant the virtue in your mind, to stay human in the next life, they're saying is worthy of your rejoicing. Okay? So that's one level. The second level of rejoicing is rejoicing about all the things that you're doing and other people are doing that would get them to nirvana. Anything that they do, right? So anything that anyone's doing that's going to help them remove their mental afflictions permanently. That's the second level. Of course, the most effective one would be seeing emptiness directly. So you want to be rejoicing about anyone having any kind of an emptiness understanding, right? Which will increase your emptiness understanding. If someone comes up to you and they suddenly get really excited and wow, this thing happened, I get it. I get it. I get it that this person that I was looking at was actually born of my past karma. You should get really, really stoked in that moment, you know, and really notice if any jealousy pops up. And if it does, squash it like a bug and go right into rejoicing, because that will send you further, right? Anyway, and the third, so you'll notice in all these rejoicings, there's two kinds of rejoicing, right? For the things that you're doing and also for the things that other people are doing. Very important to be noticing what people are doing in the world and being happy about it. I mean, how are you going to create a beautiful world if you're constantly like not rejoicing in what others are doing? And worse, thinking about, I don't know, rejoicing about the bad things they're doing or how they're failing. That's like just a recipe for disaster, right? In the scriptures, they always say, and Geshe Makaroch points this out in an interesting way. He says, in the scriptures, they always say that if you rejoice in the good that other people are doing, you automatically get 10% of their karma, of their... And he says, they always say 10%. They never say 9, they never say 11. They always say 10%. So he just points that out as being interesting. Yeah. And as I was mentioning before, right, the opposite of rejoicing is jealousy. So as a bodhisattva, as a budding bodhisattva, it's like a heinous thing to be jealous, because you're supposed to be running around trying to make everyone happy. So, you know, if you have to fight it, if you have it in your mind, you have to go after it, because it's your enemy, right? So you should be, in a way, if you're a bodhisattva and you see good things happening in your world, you should be happy, because that's what you're all about. You're about creating this beautiful place. So if you see beautiful things happening, then you're doing your job right, right? So you should be like rejoicing. Okay, the third level, we've said, go to a higher realm, go to nirvana. What do you think the third level is going to be? Yeah, enlightenment, right? Take joy in other people doing anything to get them enlightened, to make them a full Buddha. So that covers the first practice of rejoicing, with 3 levels inside the first level, which we will now take a little break.
Yeah, because we got 4 more to go.
And in that break, we shall listen to some music.
And let's open some windows.
Yeah, let's get some.
Or turn some fans on.
Wait, Mom. Mom and John, are you driving home?
I definitely am driving home. That's.
It's an actual question.
Is that? Do you have a question you want to ask me? What's that?
Is Mishi coming with you?
Mishi always comes with me.
What is it actual question?
Cut to the chase, Mr. Okan.
Cut to the chase, honey.
Yeah, as long as your mother superior there is okay with you.
Can I go with him and not with him?
Oh, let me think if you have it in your karma.
I love you too.
Let me check.
Karma check.
I guess you can.
Yeah.
Although last time we almost got it at the same time.
Is that right?
No, actually, if the bus came right away and I didn't miss the sky train,
So that's it.
yes, I'm just making the possible.
Oh,
Now
now you're right back, quarter away, by here. What is your computer doing, honey? Automatic updates.
All right.
Okay, we're gonna
Bring this
power
in.
through
You gotta close that.
90% of the homework questions now.
Huh? Close it. Yes, the running horse.
And Okan, will you make sure that John has a head?
Yes, he has a head. It's not sliced in ten.
But it's, he's missing the top part of it.
Parts.
He's like a hard-boiled egg with the top.
Oh, that's the best part. That's why
Is this
I
you?
put it.
Or do you blow that out?
Why?
And this is okay. So I'm
Yeah,
going to.
you're going to there.
Okay.
We're moving on. Number
Move
2.
on, no.
What were these again? 5 things to do what?
The 5 activities to help us collect positive energy
Yes.
needed to reach the
Yeah.
true wish for enlightenment. Okay. The second practice to collect positive energy, say kulwa.
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 Kulwa. That L is so hard to say.
Kulwa? You mean to say it properly?
Yes.
How do you, try
The
it?
Tibetan, the L part is not our English L
Yeah.
part.
It's
Isn't
very
it?
Japanese, actually.
But
Cool.
Kulwa.
yeah.
So the second thing that we do is we asking holy beings to teach the Dharma.
Yeah.
What? What are you guys talking about?
I only wrote part of the word. I stopped after
She
T.
didn't write the chinks part.
Ask for tea.
Chinks.
This is new. Finally, something I haven't heard.
See, aren't you glad you're coming back to ACI class? You learn something new every time.
Right up. This is right up Amanda's alley.
Do without it.
Asking for tea.
Exactly.
I shall get to enlightenment by asking for tea.
Well, that's how Amanda's gonna get there.
And in my Buddha paradise, there will be tea every day.
There will be tea every day.
Actually, in Turkey they say the cup of coffee has 40 years of virtue. You're serving someone a cup of coffee.
What about the
Like
person
Turkish
drinking it?
coffee. I don't know. But
Are they
some
using
people are
up
serving-
40 years of virtue?
If you
That's
serve
sweet
it-
that they teach that.
And the kids, they just can't wait for someone to come home so they will make them a cup of Turkish coffee.
Nice.
Well, I guess it's a way of encouragement, right? 40 years, wow, look how many cups of coffee I did.
Wow, that's amazing.
That's good. I love that.
But we're not talking about coffee or tea right now. We're talking about asking holy beings to teach.
For tea.
To teach the Dharma. It's literally what it means is asking a holy being to turn the wheel of the Dharma. A Buddhist teacher is not actually supposed to teach unless they're specifically asked, which is what the opening prayers are, actually, is asking,
In case you didn't know.
in case we're tricking you into asking so we can sit here.
Because
Yes,
we're
we'll get
not
them-
allowed to teach if you don't
we'll
ask.
get them to ask so we can just sit here and talk. And on the first 2 askings, actually, you're supposed to ask. You're supposed to say, "I don't know anything about it." And then on the third one, if the Buddhist teacher thinks that they're really sincere, then they're supposed to, okay, I'll teach. They're allowed to teach. You know, I think it's good. You know, it stops. If you really embrace that, then it will stop you from thinking that you're a hothead, you know, Buddhist scholar who's going to save the world and bore everyone at Starbucks with all your big ideas. You know, it's good. You should wait till you're asked. Wait for your openings, or you know you could lose friends. So, yeah. In scriptures, they say there's a famous mistake where they say one of the reasons why the Buddha left the world is because a student forgot to ask him, or stopped asking him to stay and teach. They say that to get special teachings, especially if you're going to get like Tantra, esoteric teachings, it needs to be done in the right way. And you need to ask it in the right way, with the right motivation, with the right heart. And you're certainly not going to receive any tantric teachings. And the teacher will certainly not say yes unless they feel that you're asking in the right way and your motivation is pure. You know. And the Dharma teacher that you're asking for teachings doesn't not have to be someone who's wearing a red robe. If you're really on your game, and you start to think about the ideas that we're learning here with all your will and all your heart, you'll start to understand where the world is coming from, and then your heart and your mind will open so that you reach the point where you're looking for teachers and asking for teachings everywhere you go, even at work. And then you'll start, you won't be able to stop the karma, because then you'll see things as teachings all the time, whether or not they seem to be quote unquote negative things people are doing quote unquote to you or not. You'll gain the momentum and the virtue to actually see them as your holy teachers. So there's enlightened beings all over the place, and they're not going to, they only do what it is that you need. And they're only going to appear to you in the way that you need them to appear to you. And they're not going to appear to you in any other way. They don't have any investment in how you think about them at all. So, and what is a proper way to ask? Okay, as an example, let's say you have a sutra teacher, and then you see them as maybe someone who could teach you higher teachings. The real proper way to ask is actually doing what they've asked you to do. That's actually the proper way to ask, because then they see that you're actually putting into position what they're teaching you. And they'll know that you're not if you continue to be unhappy. They will know that you're not, because they know that the teachings work. So if you put them into play and they see that you're making some progress, that is asking them to teach you more, because they want to teach you more, because they're like, okay, this person is doing what I say, they're making some progress, and they get actually stoked about teaching you some more, because that's all they live for, is to give you the blessing that worked for them, because they understand that that's all that's going to work for you anyway. They don't care about your cars and houses and how much money you have or don't have. They don't care about that at all. All they care about is your personal happiness. So you should be getting happier. So that's the second one. Now Sherri's going to tell us about the third one.
The third one's kind of funny, actually. I wrote on here, ask them to stay. This is sounding awfully like the 7 limbs, isn't it?
It sure does.
Asking them to stay literally in the text says asking them to not pass away, asking them to not go to nirvana. He says it's kind of like asking them to hold on to their mental afflictions a little bit longer. But that's not,
which is weird.
That's not actually what you're asking. I mean, that's not what you want to ask of your teacher, right? Oh, please hold on to all of your mental afflictions. Don't go to nirvana. Like, that's not what you're doing. You have to understand by this, asking them to stay means to understand how many cups of Turkish coffee you had to pour for them to even appear in your life. It's to understand the fact that if you happen to have a spiritual teacher, the only way they've appeared to you is because you collected enough good karma to have that happen. It's not coming from their side, actually. That's always our disclaimer, right? If you hate this class, it's not our fault. This is not coming from us. I'm sorry, that always makes me laugh. But it's true. It's the fact that if you have anyone in your life, and what Lama John said earlier about, the ultimate is really to have amassed such good karma that teachings come to you in everything, in the silence of the fan not whirring, or in the in that cup of tea, like in anything that happens to you, in the sound that just went by, like just to have that and to recognize it as a teaching in the moment that it happens, like that's ultimately what you're going for, right? So to understand that is to also understand the fragility of that, to understand the preciousness of the opportunity. If you're sitting in this room, if you have had exposure to teachings that inspired you, teachers that inspire you, that's all been the result of great good virtue, but it has also cost you great good virtue. So again, we want to understand how to keep perpetuating this, how to keep yourself on that upward spiral, right? So to keep a Dharma teacher in your life is actually extremely difficult. It's very, very karmically slippery. And they say that it's really expensive karma. And one of the very best ways to have them stay is to ask them. And, who is your teacher anyways, right? Especially if you get into the higher teachings. And again, it's not coming from their side. You have to remember everything we said at the beginning of class about emptiness and what some of you know of the 3 spheres. The most powerful thing that an enlightened being can do for you is to teach you. So anyone and anything that teaches you by that definition might be a Buddha. I mean, you can't prove that they are, but you can't prove that it's not, right? So the qualification of an enlightened being is that they can read your mind. It's one of the qualifications. They know all things, past, present, and future. They're not omnipotent, but they are omniscient. So if they can read your mind, then what do you think one of the best ways to ask them how to stay is? And that's why it's in the 7-limb prayer, right? Like, it is part of the preliminaries. It's part of that meditation we did at the beginning of last class. And if you missed it, I think it's on the Ustream from last time. But it's just really, really important to understand why you're asking them to stay. And it's because you're recognizing the preciousness and the fragility of this karma, and how, well, actually, if you are asking them, it's good to ask openly, but if you are sincerely asking from your heart, you're also making a statement that you believe they can read your mind, right? So, far-reaching virtue. That's number 3.
A beautiful, really beautiful aspect of what that last section is that it's not like they have a choice.
Yeah.
It's not like, it's not like that. It's not like the teacher has a choice. If you ask sincerely enough, whether you're in front of them or not, they must do it. It just it has to happen. They don't really have a choice. It's like when like an angel that appears to you does not have a choice. They don't go through this process of deciding to appear. Yeah. You just see them. You see them. And they recognize that you see them, and then they must act accordingly. It's not like they choose. It's not like they choose. They're forced into it. They can't help it. And it's a beautiful thing. and a good or a genuine teacher, that's just what they are. They've just become that thing, and it is so beyond any kind of a choice. So it's cool if by doing all that you're doing, you continue to force the perception of seeing them be of benefit to you. So the fourth one is dedication. Dedication. And that is gewa. Gewa.
Gewa.
That's one of our prayers, right?
Gewa, no, it's actually, I shouldn't say that. It's not gewa, it's nyowa.
It's ngoa.
Noah. Noah.
Ngoa.
Noah's Ark. Noah. So, and we need to just very briefly discuss the difference between prayer and dedication. Okay, Munlam is to pray, right? It means to pray. Nyowa means to dedicate. So, a prayer is you're asking for something, right? A prayer means may I learn the perfection of wisdom. May I learn this, right? That's Munlam. Dedication is like you already have something and you want to put it towards something versus asking for something, right? So Nyowa means like there must be something which you dedicate with. It's like putting money in the bank, right? So when what you dedicate is your virtue. What you dedicate is, we'll do one at the end of class today in English. You're dedicating what you've done here tonight by sitting here and listening and thinking. And so it's like you're putting them in the consciously into the karmic bank. And what they say is, if you do that, they don't wear out. You seal them and they don't wear out. And if you don't do that, they can be destroyed. This is what they say in the scriptures. They can be destroyed. So there's 4 kinds of dedication of Nyowa. One, there's a general dedication. And that's like the thing that we do at the end of class, right? By coming to this class, may all people become Buddhas. Like that kind of general dedication. The second kind of dedication that Master Shantideva mentions is dedicating it to sick people. So dedicating whatever you've done in your mind to sick people. The third kind of dedicating is dedicating your virtue to help those who are hungry or thirsty or need things like that. Need those kinds of sustenances. The fourth kind of dedication is that you wish that everyone in the world, by your actions, would get everything that they want. The verses and the readings are exquisite. Master Shantideva, he's unbelievable. And Geshe-la's translations of him are so sweet. And dedication is, what's that? No? Is that what you're saying? Oh, okay. Oh, yeah, cool. To understand dedication, you have to understand really a lot of the principles of karma and emptiness and all it is that we're doing. Because, does the dedication really help the hungry and the sick? And Master Shantideva says, not in the way that you think. Not by some magical thing that goes out and, feeds people. Not in the way that you think. You have to read the verses carefully to get wind of that. And you have to have a very, very good understanding of why and how your mind is projecting what you're projecting and how it is you're seeing what you're seeing. And because in his last chapter, Master Shantideva's last chapter, he does this amazing dedication, and he says, like, I will become the food. I will become the food. I will become the ultimate doctor. I will become that. So how is it that, if we talk about all the movements of your mind, all the thoughts that you're having as they go through your mind stream are having an effect on your future reality. If you're doing all these things, right, all these kinds of meditations and doing these activities in the world, and then you're also in your mind dedicating it in your mind to like the goodness of everyone else, this is creating a certain state of being that you experience forced upon you, just like you're forced to experience whatever you experience right now. It's the same. It's the same. It's the same as when you look down one day and you see golden Buddha hands, right? It's the same. It's only appearing by the virtue of the same principles that has been making all your other lives and all your other experiences. It's just you happen to put the right things into the pot. That's all. That's all you're learning here, really. It's quite simple. You're just learning to put different things into the pot, so it cooks up something different. It's a lot nicer cake. Really, that's really it. So you could be the supreme doctor, right? You could be the enlightened being that teaches countless beings without even thinking about it, with no effort. Just by being what you have become by virtue of all that you've wished for and done about it. And that's how you can help sick people. That's what you're trying to do. You're trying to become that kind of person. I'll just, one little hint. Okay. It's not like, okay, say you could reach out some magical arm and suck sickness out of somebody. Okay. Maybe that would help them for a few years. Maybe that would help them for maybe a lifetime. But what if you became the kind of being that could teach them why they're sick? That could teach them where sickness comes from. Then, not only have you drawn out their sickness, you've stopped all their sickness, and not only that, but you've then taught them how to teach others how to stop sickness. So, by this one thing, with this one being, how many universes have you stopped sickness in? If you look at the far-reaching effects of a skipping stone across the universe, it's never going to end, right? So it's good to think about things like that. To blow the ceiling off any idea that you have that you're just going to stop at this thing, right? Yeah. So number 5.
Yeah, the last one. Say Tongsem.
Tongsem.
Tongsem is translated as generosity and surrender. Basically, this is the... And this is interesting because it really did sound for a minute like we were just repeating the 7 limbs, right? But this is different. This is very specific to Master Shantideva's Guide to the Bodhisattva's Way of Life. So his 5th practice, and what was it we were practicing for again?
Ways to...
how to collect the merit, right? So this last one is a total willingness to give up anything you have for others. So this means your body, anything you own, all the goodness that you have, you just say, whatever I've got is yours. And interestingly enough, this is not the perfection of giving yet. Because Master Shantideva is teaching us the perfections, right? But this is a warm-up to the perfection of giving. And it's considered the final preliminary. Do you guys remember we're still in the preliminaries? We're still getting... We've been talking about the preliminaries for the last 4 classes, right?
Must be important.
So this, you finally made it. I mean, we actually, I think, spent 3 of those 4 classes on purification, so it's got to tell you what Master Shantideva thinks our priorities need to be. But we now have gotten to the point with this of completing the preliminaries to get to bodhicitta. Okay? And that's where we've been going this whole course, is to get that great altruistic love that not only is motivated to reach your ultimate enlightenment, but to do it so that you can get everybody else there also. Okay? So these, you have to be able to do all 5. You have to practice all of these just to get the wish to get enlightened, actually.
The true wish.
Yeah, the true wish. So that's where we're going to end class. Any questions? All good? So if you do listen to the audios, which are free online at acidharma.org, it's acidharma.org. If you go under the formal courses or formal classes, it would be course 10. This is class 5. All of the audios are free. All of the material is free. We only ask that if you are coming regularly to class, to not listen to the class ahead of time. Listen to it after, because it's not because you're going to catch us on not teaching you something. Well, you might. But it's because if you listen to it before you come to class, then you're already, a part of your mind is going to go, I know. I heard that already. When you hear it, and you're not leaving yourself as open to the wisdom as you can. But after class, please listen to the audios, because Geshe-la's original teachings that were recorded over a decade ago are exquisite. And he talks a lot about pizza in this class.
And you're recording this right now.
We are,
Right?
so if
is
you...
that available as well?
It is through the Ustream. It's 3 Jewels Vancouver on Ustream. Yeah, thank you.
If you go to our Facebook page, the link's there.
Right.
Also
Okay.
Yeah, I think after a while we fill up our memory, and then it has to be transferred off of Ustream, so YouTube is another source for some of the earlier teachings too. Yeah.
But we'll have our own TV one day.
the 3 Jewels Vancouver station?
Yes.
You're not the first person that has said that, but awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you. Okan, you got it in English?
First one, honey. Here's the great earth. One time.
Alright. Everybody ready?
Here's the great earth, filled with the smell of incense, covered with a blanket of flowers, the great mountain, the 4 continents, wearing a jewel of the sun and the moon. In my mind, I make the paradise of a Buddha, and I offer it all to you. By this deed, may every living being experience the pure world. Idam Guru Ratna Mandalakam Niryatayami. By the goodness of what I have just done, may all beings complete the collection of merit and wisdom, and thus gain the 2 ultimate bodies that merit and wisdom